Parliament's Ad Hoc Committee is set to resume its critical hearings this coming Tuesday, delving deeper into serious allegations of criminality, political interference and corruption within the police and criminal justice system. The committee's proceedings are expected to be particularly charged with two prominent political figures, EFF MP Julius Malema and MK Party MP Skosana, taking centre stage. Their recent heated exchange over the judiciary's role and accountability has set a contentious tone for the upcoming sessions. A significant point of contention revolves around the committee's stance on online testimonies. Despite security concerns raised by key witnesses like forensic investigator Paul O'Sullivan and alleged political fixer Brown Mogotsi, the committee, notably with strong opposition from ANC MP Khusela Sangoni and even Julius Malema, has largely dismissed virtual appearances. Now, this decision underscores a firm belief within the committee that physical presence is crucial for accountability and the credibility of evidence, rejecting calls for remote participation in these sensitive investigations. Let's bring you some analysis on this with our special guest political analyst, Asanda Ngoasheng. A very good afternoon to you, Asanda. Thank you so much for your time. I mean, the recent heated exchange between EFF MP Julius Malema and MK Party MP Skosana over the judiciary's role and accountability has been highly publicized. How do such strong public disagreements among committee members impact the perceived impartiality and overall effectiveness of the committee's investigation?
Thank you so much for having me. I think that, Parliament is the place where debates are supposed to take place. Whether those debates then result in false information or incorrect information being spread is another conversation altogether. And it's the role of Parliament to then ensure that when information or misinformation might be, communicated, then they release statements that can enable the correct understanding of the law and the correct understanding of judicial duties to be communicated. So it doesn't surprise me that there are such contentions, and there will continue to be such contentions because different political parties and different individuals in general have different readings of the law outside of, people who actually are lawyers and it's their job to read the law.
We know that the Ad Hoc Committee has taken quite a firm stance against virtual testimonies, even when witnesses like Paul O'Sullivan and Brown Mogotsi have cited their own security concerns. What are some of the implications of denying virtual testimonies in such high-profile investigations? And do you think at all that this decision potentially compromises the committee's ability to gather comprehensive evidence?
Well, I think, it is important that people are physically there, but I think they should be making some concessions for people who are unable to present themselves for whatever reasons physically to be able to do so in camera, in the same way that in normal court, one is allowed to actually appear in camera. And there have been, precedents set of virtual screenings or virtual, participation in actual court. So it wouldn't be the first time in South Africa that we have so-called legal proceedings going on, in camera.
Asanda, as we consider the serious allegations of criminality, political interference and corruption being probed, how do you think might the committee's eventual findings or even the conduct of its members during these hearings influence the broader political landscape, especially as we know in the context of upcoming elections or even shifts in party dynamics at play?
Well, I think, there's a couple of things we need to consider. One, we've already had a witness in the Matlanga Commission murdered, actually dead. And so the idea of there being security concerns is something that can't be ignored, because while the Ad Hoc Committee is separate, to the Madlanga Commission. They're very much related. And so if witnesses can be murdered for Madlanga, there definitely is potential that witnesses can be murdered for the Ad Hoc Committee too. I think also that we need to, as the public, use our discretion because, as you've already highlighted, it's an election that's coming up. And so political parties will do what political parties always do when it's election time. They will take up as much airtime as they can on our airwaves, and usually that comes from being controversial, from making controversial statements, from causing delays, from going to court, and any other action that they can take that makes sure that they take up the most airtime in terms of media coverage of their actions. And so unfortunately, this commission, because it's election time, may end up in part becoming a political circus where political parties are not necessarily participating at their full honest capacity, but are actually using it as a vehicle to highlight the, that the MK is viscerous on certain issues and, is serious about these issues, or that the EFF or that, the ANC or any of the political parties. So that shouldn't surprise us. What is concerning, though, for me is how these political parties behaved when one Kat Matlala was, in a hearing with them, and the ways in which they seemed to hero worship this guy and how happy they were to see him and the handshakes. That was really disappointing because this is a person that is alleged to have literally been one of the biggest negative influences on our criminal system. And unfortunately, not only is he alleged to have been a criminal and done criminal activity, he also even was given the keys because, remember, his tender was actually to work with policemen to do medical testings and other things that have implications for whether police are active and fit for duty, whether police have capacity to be able to do their work in the first place. And most importantly, through ensuring that he got that tender, you are putting a literal alleged criminal mastermind into contact with actual individual policemen on the ground, which compromises their and actually is quite dangerous in the sense that they were not protected in those moments, because in those moments when they were going for those medical testing, when they were going for all of those things that they were supposed to go to according to the tender, they didn't know that they were going to a alleged criminal who could have murdered them, who could have harmed them in those particular instances. And so it was quite irresponsible an action that happened there. And I think that we haven't expanded enough as South Africa on that and the implications of that. And we need to ensure that whether it's the Madlanga Commission or this Parliamentary Ad Hoc Commission, the people who particularly gave that tender must be held account for not just criminality, but also reckless endangerment of our police force, never mind the corruption and abuse of power that you've heard about, both in the Parliamentary Ad Hoc Committee and in the Madlanga Commission.
Asanda, that's quite a significant observation as you talk about the behavior of politicians in the presence of Vusmusi Kat Matlala. One cannot help but wonder about public trust in parliamentary processes, and the justice system is highly crucial. How do the public disputes, the handling of witness testimonies, and the procedural decisions made by the Ad Hoc Committee affect, for one, public perception and confidence in the integrity of these institutions?
Well, I think, Parliament is a lawmaking body or institution. And as a lawmaking body or institution, it has a high responsibility and it requires a high level of trust by South Africans of the people who they have effectively put into power. That's why they even have constituencies that they're supposed to report to directly, because they report to the people. They are placed in Parliament by the people. And when they behave in the ways that we've seen, in the ways that I've highlighted, it actually completely creates a breakdown in trust. And that trust, if you think about the fact that it creates a breakdown in trust in the parliamentary or legislative system, it also creates a trust already that we are talking about the reason for this ad hoc committee and the commission, the Madlanga Commission itself, is also another break in trust. That's why in South Africa, over the past 20 to 30 years, we've seen many communities take the law into their own hands and actively murdering people who are suspects. Some communities have even gone as far as paying the bail for an alleged criminal, and then as soon as they're released, actively murdering them themselves. That tells you that people no longer have trust in our institutions as a country that are actually supposed to ensure that justice takes place so that communities don't have to take the law into their own hands. And we're also seeing, some of the things that are coming out, not just at the Ad Hoc Committee, but also in Madlanga, is that not only is our policing effectiveness, under question, the equipment that the policemen are using there isn't enough equipment, there aren't enough people to analyze the data. And if you look at the conviction rates of South Africa, we're looking at something ridiculous, like of the people that actually get arrested, only something ridiculous like 5 to 6% actually end up in convictions. And when you look at murders, for example, you will see that only about 40% of the murders and those are the ones that end up being prosecuted, actually end up somewhere in the system. And the numbers for conviction themselves are very low. And so we are sitting with a crime. It's not just a crime, we're sitting with a crisis of crime in South Africa. And part of the reason why criminals behave so recklessly is because they don't believe that the system will actually act. If you think about the case that we just saw now over December of a man who was alleged to have grabbed a phone in full view of a camera. Then the guy was arrested and found to not only be, somebody who was stealing cell phones, but also illegally in the country. Then it turns out that this guy has been arrested in 2013, in 2023, has been arrested in 2024, and now he's being arrested in 2025. The question is, what are the chances that he's not going to be let go again in 2025, or will his case only be dealt with properly because now it's on social media and there was video? And this is concerning because we shouldn't need a camera in place and South Africans actively using social media to lobby for somebody to be arrested for their case to not only get to prosecution and also an actual jail sentence to take place. Otherwise, we're just wasting our time. And all that's going to happen is those who feel they have the power will just take the law into their own hands and mete out their own justice, which creates lawlessness, chaos, and absolute mayhem for everybody.
Yeah, absolutely. Asanda, very quickly before we let you go, I mean, you did mention the killing of a witness, witness D, Marius van der Merwe, who was shot right in front of his family outside his home in Brakpan last year. What precedent does the Ad Hoc Committee's approach to witness testimony, particularly its rejection of virtual appearances, despite security concerns, set for future parliamentary inquiries and investigations into sensitive matters?
Well, it makes it very difficult for people to offer themselves to go and testify or to share the information that they do have if the police themselves cannot guarantee that they will have safety. And I think what's most interesting about this particular case is that you have, the entire policing system itself is under question. The entire policing system itself is being questioned as a politically connected and corrupt system. And now the very same witnesses have to trust this very system that is under question with ensuring that they might have safety, which is a fallacy. Nobody is going to trust that. So we may see less people testifying both at the Parliamentary Ad Hoc Committee and at Madlanga because they fear for the safety, and we may have to, find ourselves with delays in the proceedings of both because people may wait until they are physically compelled legally to testify rather than what we had seen before, where people were volunteering to testify because they had the information and were happy to go ahead and share the information because they thought the information was important and needed in order to bring these criminals that are running our South African system that are running our criminal system in South Africa and causing so much mayhem, together with organized criminals as well as political principals who have a mandate constitutionally to protect us, but are actually protecting criminals rather than ordinary South Africans.
Very well. Thank you so much. We're going to have to leave it there for now. Political analyst Asanda Ngoasheng giving us a sense of the week ahead as Parliament's Ad Hoc Committee is set to resume its hearings come Tuesday.